Now we'll move on to the second talk for the day, that is social media and academia. So we come to the slightly off-beat topic today and how it can make a difference to your career. And no disclosures. So before we venture on to the topic, let me tell you the structure. We'll quickly run through the various kinds of social media platforms, the metrics that can be used, what are researcher profiles, the tips and tricks of the trade, and the academic misadventures which you would not like to be a part of. So what are these platforms that social media comprises of? We are all familiar, I suppose, with Twitter and Facebook. In India, these are popular, and also Twitter is big all around the world. Then there are some more academic specific social media channels like Mendeley, ResearchGate, and LinkedIn. In Eastern Europe, we have other social media portals like VKontakte, OnloKlasniki, and WhatsApp is big in India. It's used largely for personal communication, but the line between personal and professional is getting blurred by the day. WeChat is more popular in China. So this brings us to the question, why do we want to use social media for academia? So the distinctive advantages of this model, primarily borderless communication, as we can see today, all of us are here and connected, and those of us who are not able to join on time are going to catch us on live stream and recordings later. So this is the realm of borderless communication, and the world is a smaller place with the use of these social media tools. And also it's very convenient. You can be sitting in the comfort of your homes or in the office or taking break between different meetings, and you quickly tweet about something, and at the same time you're connecting with researchers across the world. Also, it is rapid and efficient, so that adds a special flavor. And needless to say, this old mantra of publish or perish may very soon be replaced by be found or perish in this digital age. So everything is pretty much moved online. Researchers have moved online. Libraries are now more of digital libraries. I'd say lives are being lived online too. And also, to answer this question, we may need to boil down to the basics, like why are we conducting research? It may be because we have a hypothesis in our mind. It is a riddle which is bothering you. Okay, maybe this pathway is more operative in COVID-19 pathogenesis, or maybe that one, maybe we can target that, or it's just a means to an end. Suppose you just want to publish papers for academic growth, or you want to improve existent methods. So suppose there's a laboratory technique to check anti-nuclear antibodies, and you want to describe a better technique which is faster, which doesn't require so much expertise, or there's an ELISA kit which you have available in India which you want to test, or for career growth. So either ways, any researcher, they have a specific responsibility to communicate, and there are different realms of communication. One is within the academia. We want to communicate with our peers and colleagues regarding the papers, and we do that by means of conferences or webinars as we're doing today. But then there's also a sense of responsibility which we should carry for the society. And this primarily is reflected in terms of events or maybe blogs which share information on research. So we see that a lot these days, that something comes up and it's remarkable research, especially in the era of COVID-19, then blogs will pick it up and a lot of lay public will resort to that kind of information. Also, news channels feature information, and then social media is the big game, which we will come to in a minute. For examples, we conduct a systematic review of smartphone apps available for coronavirus disease. And so whom do we need to inform of this research? We conducted literature search and went through the apps in India, United States, and UK. And we want to tell people which app is the best. So we have a clear message here, which is very important, which needs to be conveyed. And as much as the healthcare workers, even the lay public needs to know. And such news gets featured on Center of Disease Control website because this is of prime importance to the lay public. It also gets tweeted and gets viewed around 1,500 times, and the PDF downloaded over 350 times. So this is how research can be important. There are different kinds of research, and you may need to communicate, and social media is the best tool for that. Now, before we go on further, let me run you through the various kind of metrics in academia. So bibliometrics, if you're a big fan of citations, so that is what bibliometrics is all about. So you publish a paper and your paper gets cited in another paper. So for those of you who've conducted research, you would know how tedious and um, time taking that process is. Today, you write a paper, writing takes ages, collecting the data takes ages, and then it undergoes peer review and comes online, even post publication processing. Uh, it takes time. So these take time to accumulate, and we'll talk more about this in the future slides. And webometrics is when your URL link, so your paper is present on a particular URL link, and how many times that URL link is accessed by another link. So that is webometrics. It can also give you an indication of how much your research is being accessed. And then the usage metrics like downloads, visits, or reads, like we talked about in the previous slide. And then there's alt metrics, which we'll go over later. So the Declaration of Research Assessment, the meeting is conducted in San Francisco. They also recommend that journal-based metrics need to be replaced or complemented. I wouldn't use a strong word like eliminate, but definitely there's a felt need for a range of performance measures, which includes alt metrics. So why do we need new metrics? Mainly because as we talked about it, peer review is slow and inefficient. So someone else wants to cite your paper, it's going to take ages. You all would have been reviewers at some point. You know, you're busy in your lives. It takes time, and then revisions take time. So it's a very slow process, and current world is really fast-paced. And then we have citations, which are limited only to those people who write. So of the 200 people who registered for this conference, how many would write? Not many would write. So I am publishing this research, for example, in smartphone apps, but not everyone is going to write a research paper, yet they may use those apps. So using only citations as a metric of success of that publication or of the utility may be inappropriate. Also, impact factor, as Dr. Goel talked about previously, can be easily manipulated, and these metrics are carrying their own fallacies and are prone to abuse. So the wider impact on the scientific community, if we were to measure it, we would look at the downloads, tweets, we can look at its use in educative material. So this brings us to alt metrics. It's basically attention to research from the non-traditional sources like policy documents, news, blogs, social media. And it's an indicator of research impact, and also it complements but does not replace traditional metrics, which is the most important thing to be remembered after today's talk. So the broader attention is captured from a wide range of different sources. And also, if you look at the scientific cycle of attention to research, one is months and years, that is citation, the traditional metrics. But if you look at the today's world, which is fast-paced, alt metrics, you have an article published within 2 minutes. It can be on social media. You tweet about it, your friends tweet about it, and then your colleagues tweet about it. And then it's noticed. If you use hashtags, we look at the strategies further. So maybe researchers in similar fields who are interested in that kind of research, they watch it and then they retweet it. So it gets attention, and over days, these alt metrics build up and gather more and more momentum. And since people are reading it, so not all people will subscribe to all journals. Some people may just be on Twitter and they notice your research and they know about it. For example, just last week, I was writing a review article, and I wanted to talk about the articles on coronavirus disease and myositis. But when I did a PubMed search, sometimes our searches may not be perfect. So nothing, I could get nothing, literally nothing. But then I remembered there were a few articles which I found on Twitter, and I ended up citing them. So of course, if learned people go through your research, they will cite it, but they have to first go through it and notice it, which can happen very quickly through social media. Also, a high online visibility of an article, it has the potential to draw attention not only to the researcher, but also to the study and the journal. So this is a responsibility we have towards the journal as well. And for that, various journals are these days having social media accounts, and social media editors are involved for the same. So this term, altmetrics, this fancy term just came up by fluke. This gentleman known as Jason Prim, he used this in a tweet way back in 2010. And after that, this became the official term for article level alternate metrics. And this gentleman went on to be the co-founder at Impact Story, which is another portal for alt metrics. And it offers the added advantage of generating research profiles, and you can get your CV there. It will sample the World Wide Web for all information on you, and it will put it up there, synthesize it in a beautiful format. You can download it, and it adds credibility. So if you have your CV and you add a researcher profile from Impact Story or another such portal, it shows that it's already been verified. It's generated by someone else. You're not putting up there. No one needs to really check if it's there or not. So altmetrics, there are various portals. Most common is altmetrics.com, which is popular, and we'll talk about it greater length. But then there are various others like PlumX. Also, you might have heard of the PLOS journal. So this journal group also provides article level metrics specifically for the articles published on their platform. So this has been there for quite a while, but then it's specific to this publisher group. And then Impact Story, which I mentioned about. But then there are also aggregators, which you should not confuse with altmetrics. So these are basically portals where the research is aggregated and available all together. I think in India, ResearchGate is popular, and many of you may be familiar. For those of you who are joining us from overseas, you may be more comfortable with Mendeley or academia.edu. So these two are also popular with social sciences and the other scientific backgrounds. And then there are many others. So you may have seen this altmetric donor at times, and it's time you got to know about it. So the advantage of this altmetric donor is it real time. So today it's 7, tomorrow two friends tweet, or maybe 2 hours later it'll be 8 or 9. So if the score goes up, it's real time, it's monitoring and sampling all that data out there on the internet. It also gives you context. So it's not just a donut, colorful and looking nice, pleasing the senses. No, so each of these carry some meaning. So each of these demonstrate where it was noticed. So these are specific sources where your article may have been shared. So blue, the color of Twitter, is the one you'll see most often. And then we'll go over it in a minute. And then broadness. So it covers a wide range of, it samples a wide range of sources, as you can see, and also the breadth of each of these. It signifies how much is the volume through each of them. So just at a glance, you can get a good idea if it's all blue and the blue is broad, so it's like only shared on Twitter. But then depending on how many colors you see and the breadth, you know that if it is just red, maybe it was a policy document or it was somewhere else in the newspaper. So that is how it reflects diversity, and it's also open and quick. So it may be the only metric for young researchers. Suppose I have a student who just started publishing and we should publish 2 papers since January. So this will be the only metric they will have. Suppose they go and apply for a job, so they can show that, oh, my article did really well on social media. This is the altmetric donut. And you can post that on your CV. And so this is a quick list of the sources sampled by the altmetric donut. It was basically a London-based startup set up by Jan Eddy in 2011. And look at the brilliance, the wide variety of sources, Google Plus, patents. So patents are important, right? News, the red is news, and then Wikipedia. So all of it you see in one go. And if you're a researcher who wants to know what are people talking about my research and you're really curious, then it can tell you apart from the breakup of your research and its social media success. It'll also give you a geographic distribution of where your the people interested in your research are based. So you can know if you were just local or you actually went global. And apart from that, altmetric.com also offers various other facilities, like you get the altmetric bookmarklet. So this is basically a browser plugin. You can see the altmetric data for any publication. You just hover over it and you can see, once you've downloaded this, you can see quickly what are the altmetric scores. And then you have the altmetric batches. So again, you can embed them, you download them into individual profiles. It'll tell you your altmetric score, your article's altmetric score. And then the altmetric API. So API is like a PubMed database. So you go and query the PubMed database for the various articles, but you can also go to the API and look at the articles based on their altmetric scores. And you can only imagine that they'll be very different from what you obtain on PubMed or other search engines. So this is a unique thing. And the various articles being published these days, querying the API database, depending on the article API scores. And apart from that, we also have Plum Analytics. This is another such portal which offers the unique advantage of measuring what was not measurable before. So suppose you are a novice researcher and you've just published 2 articles and tomorrow you want to go apply for a grant. You have nothing to write in your CV, but you have done some amazing clinical research, and this research has changed practice. So there is a document in your hospital which says that from now on, maybe suppose clinical examination will be done this way, or maybe this is how things will be conducted. So definitely your research was impactful, but how do we measure it? So PlumX does that. So what impact has our research had in the past 12 months? So this specifically measures that. It'll sample the World Wide Web for all the information. And clinical impact, so this is specific to PlumX. So it'll sample if your papers are part of a policy document or a guideline or any kind of clinical impact. So it is very good and designed to pick that up. And for early career research grants, it is excellent because suppose you are a young researcher and you just started out, you won't have your own laboratory. You know, laboratory research typically does way better than clinical research. And for every kind of clinical research, it's usually based on some kind of laboratory research. So before any clinical research can be cited, there'll be at least 4 to 5 citations for the basic research. But if you're a young researcher and you don't have generous colleagues, senior colleagues, then you may not be able to do any lab research. And so clinical impact is what you need, and PlumX may really help you in such a case. And further, the metrics here are slightly different than alt metrics, like you have usage, citation, social media, mentions, and captures. And this is the typical appearance of a PlumX tool. Usage involves clicks, views, downloads, library holdings. Captures is more important. They say that this is more closely related to citations later on. It correlates because so this is if someone bookmarks your research or has marked it as a favorite or has saved it. So it's more likely they're going to go back to it. They want to really refer to it again and they may cite it. And then mentions like the blog posts and Wikipedia and social media is separate, which makes sense. And then the citations. This includes patent citations and clinical citations and policy citations, which are very sensible measures which are missing from the other altmetric tools. So for those of you who are big fans of citations, we come to the obvious question that does an altmetric score correlate with citation? Okay, my article has been tweeted, so what? So there are various studies every now and then, maybe every month at least I see one study on this. What is a correlation? I've seen articles in rheumatology, articles in immunology. Some say yes, some say no. So why is it? Why is there so much heterogeneity in the results? Because, so if you recall the altmetric donut, it samples your article's visibility from various different sources. So it depends where your article is being noticed. If it is on Mendeley, Mendeley is primarily comprised by academicians, even at 1,000. We will probably talk about it later. It is a curated community of academicians, which can be further stratified as basic scientists, laboratory scientists, life scientists, social scientists. So these are the people sitting out there in their offices and they are churning out research papers. And if they are reading it, of course, they're going to cite it because that's quite a lot what the job is all about. But if it is noticed on maybe news outlets or policy documents or blogs, then no, it will not translate into citations. So people have shown clearly that if your research is being noticed amid academicians in academic communities, then clearly they would be cited more. Further on, if you want funding, So that can be a problem. Like we are in this era of precision medicine, and this is like precision funding. So Plumex can integrate with your funding opportunities. It can show you prompts for what is a right funding opportunity for you, and it can also inform the funding agencies of your availability. Further, it also offers feedback from peers and also from funding agencies, which helps in growth. So feedback is always good for growth. So basically, the gist is we have different tools, and you need to know which tool to use for the right score. Like Altmetrics is for visibility, Plumex is more for research funding, and then we have Impact Story, which we did not really go into, but then it tells you some unique things like highly recommended, if your article was highly cited, and then highly discussed. You know, this discussed is very important because if you pick someone's curiosity, it's likely it's going to stay around in their memory for a longer time. And also it's good for hypothesis generation. And if you want to think, especially post-publication peer review, it'll help if your article is discussed and you maybe leads to further research. A word of caution, because you need to select the type of metric based on the impact you're investigating, and metrics in general should not trump peer review. They should only complement it. And if you're measuring societal impact, it depends on what kind of metric you're using. You can't go to F1000 prime reviews, which is primarily comprised by researchers, because it'll not tell you societal impact. So you need to be very careful where you're playing your game and trying to look at your metrics. And remember, numbers don't tell you the quality of the paper, the quality of the researcher, or the entire story. It may just be popular with the lay public, but it may be retracted later. So it's not the entire story. You need to go deeper into it and organize your thoughts and analyze what you want to make out of it. Apart from that, social media is useful not only to assert your value, to benchmark your career progress, and this is mainly for researcher profiles. You can also use them to communicate more effectively. So if you were to ask me, okay, I'm not a social media person, and please tell me just one social media platform that I want to use. I don't want to be on social media. So I'd say that I'd put my money on Twitter. It's really big in academia these days. And so the Twitter game is not as simple as it seems. So there are different kind of people who tweet. And it has been shown clearly by research, the citations accumulate based on specific kind of Twitter engagements. So one are the disseminators or the mumblers who just, retweet everything. And one are the broadcasters, they just retweet a lot of stuff. So a lot of junk, but this may not necessarily translate into citations. And then there are the orators who discuss your research. So today I published this, suppose you published with smartphone apps, and someone asked, okay, which app did you find the best? Because we just tweeted about it that, oh, we conduct a systematic review, but someone wants to discuss it. And then they tag another person and a third person, and then it becomes a thread. And the more it is becomes a thread, more people are tagged, the engagement increases, and then the visibility goes up. It's like it spreads. So that correlates with citations the most, especially if it's discussed, it's remembered, and it's analyzed, and it's, digged into. And then there are the influencers. So if you're Eric Topol, who has like a zillion followers and has written a book, and then he tweets about all the awesome stuff, then if he tweets your stuff, then definitely it gets noticed. So that is another thing. And so which article made a bigger impact? So articles with many citations, maybe have been successful at changing your viewpoint slightly. Even articles which are widely discussed in the social web, or those who have a lot of downloads, or which are discussed on networks, they also have some kind of success, maybe a different kind of success, but it is success nevertheless. So I'd say if you want to start with Twitter today, maybe you can devote 5 to 10 minutes of your valuable time every day. And there are various techniques. It's not a simple game. It's not just like you talk about or you say whatever you want. You've got just 140 characters there. So it's a limited space, and you want your tweet to be visible. It's a big community. So many people are tweeting every day. Donald Trump is tweeting. People are going to follow him. They won't follow you. So you can use hashtags, because in that big collection of information, you want your information to get a particular, be allotted to a particular domain. So you can talk about rheumatology. Suppose you're treating rheumatology, then you always mention rheumatology as a hashtag. Hashtag is a pound sign which we use before words. And to reduce words, how I do it is if I create a tweet, I use it right before the word, so that some people like to mention specific terms at the end of the tweet. That is another way to do it. Then mentions, like I said, that if people, you tag people, then it is noticed, and it goes, basically their contacts will also see it, or this person was tagged, so the network spreads. And then engagement, yes, engagement is how we discuss, like I talked about. You ask someone a question that, hey, we published this, what do you think about it? And it could be someone sitting in the United States, and then if you pull out your altmetric scores, you'll see, it was tweeted in the United States and in India. And then you can collaborate, so there's DM, direct messaging, or personal messaging. You can also do that on Twitter. And you have to say more with less. So you have a very tiny character limit. And how do you do it? Sometimes the links are huge and they occupy all of your tweets. So you can use something known as a tiny URL or bit URL, so that you can Google about it. These are websites which shorten your link. And you can also sometimes customize your link. So suppose you want to create a link on smartphone apps, so you can make it like smartphone.url. It looks cool. And then there's something called RT, modified RT, so retweet. So you just retweet someone. So you can, there is an option called retweet, and you just click that. But if you modified it, it is your moral responsibility to say it's a modified retweet. And then there are journal clubs. You can host a journal club on Twitter, which increases engagement. You discuss an article, or some journals use bots. So bots can really spam your accounts, and you need to be wary of those. And if you are a social media editor, or if you're just handling a lot of accounts, then you can sometimes use Hootsuite or TweetDeck. So they have the unique advantage that you can sync different social media profiles. Like, I want to create this tweet about this article, and I want it to go on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. Oh my God, I don't want to go in 3 times, like put that post. No. So you go to Hootsuite and you sync these 3 accounts, and the advantage, you can also schedule your posts. So I sit today for an hour and I schedule posts for the entire week. And time zoning is another technique. So you want to be noticed all around the world. So you create one tweet for 8 a.m., one for 10 a.m., and one for 12, and distribute it all along the day. So you're in the daylight time for different zones around the world. And then you can do Twitter courses, which are available on various platforms. And people have shown that social media and peer-reviewed readership, using personal accounts for tweeting, definitely increases engagement. So even when a journal has a social media editor, they will want the social media editor and other authors to tweet, because it's all about a network. A single person cannot do much. Some tips on how to create a profile on Twitter. So these are the rules of the game. Upload a profile picture. It should be clear, ideally not like this. It should be more clear. And then you need to add a background photo, which should not clash with your picture. And then add your real name. So this is a tendency a lot of people have, especially those who hate social media. They'll be like, oh no, I'm not putting my real name. But you have to put your real name, because you need to be noticed by the right people, by the colleagues, and they need to identify you and your research. So even I had a cryptic name before this, until I changed it to my real name. And then you add a location. People, it's again incorrect, but then yeah, you need to add the correct location. You can add a URL to your personal website. So if you've written a book, you can put the link to that. It's a professional community, so you can put a link to your ResearchGate or your LinkedIn. But yeah, not to your personal account usually, unless you want unnecessary attention. Then add a bio. This is the most important part. So you need to tell people what you are. Like, you talk, you're a rheumatologist, maybe you want the rheumatologist to find you. So you can add a hashtag before that. Although Twitter has this inbuilt thing, if you have a room thing in your profile anywhere, you'll see people even don't add a hashtag. And then I'm a social media editor. I want other social media editors to find me. So this is the acronym for a social media editor. And then I've used it with a pound sign as a hashtag, so that these people can find me and you can collaborate if needed. And then you add the journals that you are standing for, because this adds to your credibility, transparency. You say that, okay, those journal tweets are being handled by me. So if there's any problem, accounts can get hacked, or sometimes there can be an error. So you want people to be able to get in touch with you. And then if you're doing research on particular areas, you want people to know that. So it's just a profile, it's just lying there. Who's going to know what are you doing about? You may be publishing on 10 different topics, but one may be your area of interest, and it's a matter of years before you go on to that topic only and you stop everything else. So you want these people to find you right now, and that's why you put the appropriate hashtags and put it out there on your profile so the right people can come and find you. And then the theme color, which is not so relevant, and the birthday again, which you probably do not need to share over there. And the answer advantage is sometimes like journals. For example, Journal of Clinical Rheumatology, it offers free access. It's a paid journal, but sometimes some articles are free as part of promotion. So they set free a particular article for a fortnight and you can read it. And then you get feedback. So post-publication peer review, like I talked about the most discussed articles, and you get new ideas when you talk with people. And then it can fuel further research. And you also have this analytic tools, which you may like to go through on your personal profiles, which tell you how much of the impressions and the engagement is, how many people actually went through it, and then tweets, top tweets. And then usually the trend is that if there is a tweet with pictures, then it usually does better, and those with hashtags or those who tag other accounts. So you may want to tag other people, friends, or those who may be interested. Facebook also offers these insights. So the another advantage is you can see the time of the day when your posts are actually doing better. So you can circulate your tweets and your posts around that time. So, you know, you don't want to circulate at 4 a.m. in India where no one will be up. You want to circulate it at the time when people are most active. So you see like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. people are actually on Facebook. And then again, after 9 p.m. there's another peak. So you want to make use of this time and create posts and schedule them in this time period. And as we all know, pictures speak 1,000 words. So infographics is another important part of social media promotions. You want to use pictures for your tweets or social media posts because there's more information packed there, it's visually appealing, and it's retained better in your memory. And ideally, an infographic is more structured. It's not just any random picture, but it will take your eyes on a predefined journey. It has curated the information and synthesized it in a way that you like to see it. And it sends a clear message. It is accurate. Accuracy is something that you need to be very careful about because social media is an open game, and then everything is out there and can be recorded, and you don't want to be misquoted or misunderstood. So there are various user groups on Twitter. Like you can see, this is the academic circle where they talk of university, science, and then director, school, department, professor. And then there's topics and collectives. Like, so this is the academic depending on where you're placed. And this is the topic based, like research, education, health, person. And then this is personal, you know, like food or like writing, love, scientists. So there's life. So there's, these are different realms altogether. You want your tweet to go into the right category, you know, like I'm tweeting about COVID-19 research, something which is very laboratory based, you know, which is not of relevance, a T cell profiling in COVID-19. So I don't want people from my, if I'm living in New Delhi, surrounded by non-academicians, I don't want my tweet to go there to my neighbors, right? So you need to use the appropriate hashtags and make sure that you are in the right circle, and your bio helps, and also the hashtags you use and how you curate that tweet over there. And public is actually, if you want to be famous and you want to be having a lot of followers, then maybe you know, you want to be in the public realm. It depends on the content, of course. And then there are various uses of social media. You can have patient support groups, patient support communities. You can have access to them. If you're working on a rare disease, you can actually reach out to those people and talk to them, understand their problems, communicate, collaborate. There's so many things which can be done, especially for rare diseases, especially for initiating patient support groups so they are felt and heard, and can make use of the situation and your presence out there. So social media is being used for various purposes now, even for telehealth, where ancillary services are being provided with great convenience in the comfort of your home. People are really looking at it as a resource for AI. So there are a lot of papers coming up on artificial intelligence based data mining protocols, which just analyze tweets and geosensed and stamped tweets can give you a lot of information, including prediction of a COVID-19 outbreak in a particular community. So a lot of papers on that, and it can be a useful resource when used in the right way. And it is also a financially sustainable model, but here we need to remember that our tweets need to be curated in the right way. And if you are using pictures, then they'll have higher engagement and higher impressions. So you're more efficient at what you're trying to do. Also, smartphone apps are being used. So that is again connecting with people and with patients. So these can be then linked and synced into databases. And we may later come into the realm of teletriage and patient reported outcomes in the future. And researcher profiles are very important because it gives credibility to your content. People, it is also a reflection of your work. It shows what are your areas of interest. So your collaborators will come to you. You can get more funding. You can get CV batches, which I'll show you in a minute. So it's better to invest time. If you're a young researcher, particularly, it may be a strong foundation for the future. Like Publons is typically for reviews. More, it does offer a wide range of services, but mostly for reviews. So if you are a reviewer to various journals, you may want to send the thank you note from the journal saying that you've reviewed to Publons, and then it gathers all the information and keeps a record for you. And then if you've also got some peer review awards, so it's a thankless process getting reviews, but Publons rewards you with some sort of awards which you can add to your profile, to your CV, and really enhances your biodata. And then you can also download, like you can export the Publon CV, which shows how many articles you have reviewed and for which journals. So, it's verified. So that really adds weight to your CV if you just attach what Publon says rather than, like saying things for yourself. And then you can also download your CV. F1000 is something we did talk about earlier. It is a curated community of researchers. It includes medicine, workspace, and specialty. So they're stratified by different interests. And in workspace, you can collaborate and interact and gain much more from a community of your own kind. So if I were to give you some homework today, I'd say register on ORCID, import your work. So ORCID is a unique identifier number which links all your research, and because you may have a common name, Latika Gupta, there are so many Latika Guptas, so you don't know which one is that. So ORCID will link all the research to your name and your identity, and then you can go to Impact Story. I'll say you link your CV or email signature. So that is another cool thing you could do. And then you may have an account on ResearchGate. If not, then in better late than never. And then Mendeley and Google Scholar. Facebook could be a personal space depending. And you can, sometimes there are option of creating two profiles, a public and a professional one. Twitter is usually professional, better to keep it that way. And you could try getting the Altmetric tab and explore which articles actually did better on social media. It's something which may be of curiosity to you. And then always remember to be mindful of the fact that there are various pitfalls. There's a lot of information floating around there. You don't want yourself to spread any misinformation. You yourself don't want to be a victim of the infodemic and get misinformation and be misinformed. You don't want to create chaos by spamming people with a lot of posts. It is also important to not be misinterpreted, so always double check what you're saying. Data ownership is very important, like Dr. Goyal talked about it. Never quote someone else's data, and you have to be sure also copyright is another very important aspect. So if you transfer the copyright to the journal, you need to make sure that the author has the permissions to share it on social media. If it is just a part of the paper, then maybe it's fine. But if it is the entire paper you're putting out there, like on ResearchGate, you really need to check who the copyright lies with. And then if you're sharing patient images, it's extremely important to make sure that there's no breach of patient privacy, consent has been taken, and identifiers are blocked, so you cannot identify the patient in the picture. And of course, like, there are technological failures everywhere, like we had it last time. So you have to be mindful of that. For example, last year we hosted a conference and the Twitter account went out. It just got blocked 2 days before the conference. So you always have to be ready and prepared for the uncertain and the anti-fragile in your endeavors. So take home for today, the social media presence can boost academic performance, and conventional metrics are in, so better get used to them. You should endorse borderless communication, especially in the post-COVID era, which has made the world a smaller place. You could collaborate through social media activities, and always be wary of academic misadventures, and to not land yourself in trouble. Thank you. So this brings us to the end of my lecture, and next we will have Dr. Vinod Ravindran for the next talk.